What's going on, guys? In this video I'm going to be talking about a few things that I found out. I already talked about some things yesterday, but I found out now that I didn't have the blow-off valve hooked up whatsoever. So I just thought, I don't know why, but I thought that the port on the blow-off valve was for recirculating or something like that, and it came with a little plug on it. I didn't read the instructions. I don't know if there were any instructions, but I didn't hook it up to a vacuum source, so it never really knew when to blow off. So that sweet noise that I thought was the blow-off valve was actually the turbo compressor surging. And in the back of my mind, I kind of felt like it was, and I didn't really do anything about it. I drove it for a while. That being said, hooked up the blow-off valve. I'll show you guys. I have a vacuum line coming off of it here, running to the back of the intake, vacuum source, and now this thing blows off. It sounds totally different. It's still compressor surges under higher boost, anything above 5 pounds, I guess. It's still compressor surges a little bit and then blows off. So I think there's some way to adjust this. I may have to take this apart and adjust this. As much as I love the compressor surge noise, it sounds awesome. It's really not good for the turbo, especially this being a cheap eBay turbo, so I don't really want to blow it up. So I'm going to try to dial that blow-off valve in. That'll definitely be a future video once I figure out how to do that. Yeah, let's see, what else? The oil level has been really good in this car. It's holding true. Sometimes it's a little bit high, and I think that's due to fuel getting pushed into the oil. But yeah, it usually evaporates, I think, because the oil level goes back down. And I do have this nice catch can set up now where everything's routed right out and into the can. I haven't yet checked the can to see if there's any oil in there. I'm hoping there's not, but it looks like we couldn't have pushed that much oil in there because that holds a liter. And so it's definitely not full because my oil is full on the stick. So I don't think we're pushing any oil to the catch can, which is good. I was a little concerned about that with the fittings being all up front like that with no sort of baffle, but we're looking good there. I did buy this battery tie down thing. I got it to sit pretty good. It's pretty stable now, but it's kind of a piece of junk. But at least I now have these J-bolts here so that when I do relocate the battery into the back, I have these J-bolts, so I can just make a better bracket here out of steel or something like that. But I know some people were giving me crap for not having a proper battery tied down, so now I do, even though I think the bungee was probably just as good as this. But now my hood doesn't shut, so I got to cut these J-bolts here and here, and just now I can make the hood close. But yeah, that's all pretty good. As far as the IAT sensor, I'm still waiting for that to come in. I don't really want to do any more tuning on the car until I know how the IAT sensor is going to affect everything. I might have been tuning at -22 this entire time because the sensor's been burned out. So I'm not really sure exactly how it affects the tune. I know at colder temperatures it's going to add more fuel, and at higher temperatures it's going to pull fuel. So I'm not really sure. I'm just going to wait until I get the IAT sensor, put it in, get a reading on the ECU, and then I'm going to mess with the tune again. But the tune's pretty dialed. It's pretty safe, but there's some part throttle stuff that's kind of bugging me, like a little lean spot here and there where the car kind of bucks and jerks a little bit, and that drives me nuts. And then there's a lot of areas that are too rich, like 12.5 just cruising, and you don't need 12.5 just cruising. I'm just dumping fuel and just wasting gas. So I still want to touch up areas, but as far as wide open, it's pretty dialed. It's pretty good. It needs a little bit of touching up here and there. I don't think it'll change much with the IAT sensor in there because wide open usually runs off of just the map. So hopefully we'll be okay there. Shouldn't change that. But yeah, I'm slowly learning. I'm getting there. I make mistakes, but hopefully you guys can learn from my mistakes if you are going to try to do this. But yeah, bear with me. And if you see something I did wrong, point it out because, I'd like to be corrected, honestly, if I'm doing something wrong. But yeah, all in all, very happy with the car. It's definitely come a long way. That squeak noise, it's still there. And, I'm not really sure what it is, so I'm going to try to diag that right now. What I'm going to do is jack the car up, and I'm going to probably take a wheel off and then mess with the wheel, or just mess with the rotor itself, and see if I can get it by jostling the suspension to squeak. and then I'm going to try to pinpoint it. If I can't pinpoint it, I can disconnect the end link for the sway bar to eliminate the sway bar as a squeak, and then try to, you know, mess with the suspension. And then maybe it is still the control arm. I'm sorry, maybe it is still the sway bar bushing, because I put those new Prothane bushings in, and come to find out, once again, didn't really read the directions, but I'm pretty sure it came with this lubricant that I just found the other day. There's this, yeah, it certainly did. It says Prothane on it. I didn't see that side even. So yeah, I was supposed to lubricate those bushings, and I've read a lot about how these bushings can squeak. So if these bushings aren't lubricated, they can squeak. But it squeaked before, and it still squeaks, but it doesn't sound like a different squeak. So I don't know if it's that or if it's something else, but I'm going to eliminate that, and I'm going to lubricate those bushings. And if it is lower control arm bushings, I'm going to buy some inserts. I'll show you guys how to do that. But yeah, enough talking. This is way too much talking. I'm going to get into the video here. I'll let you guys know if I find something. Alright guys, so this time around, I have the bushings back out for the sway bar. I'm going to go ahead and put a bunch of this Prothane lubricant on the inside and work it around the inside here. And I'm also going to put some on the actual sway bar itself. And we'll make sure we got enough on both surfaces here to last. It's supposed to last a lifetime. It's supposed to be waterproof and all kinds of stuff. I did some research after the first install and after it squeaked real bad. But we got some in there. We'll put a little more. Put some on the sway bar itself, and we should be good. I'll show you guys the underside of this thing. I haven't taken you under there in a while. It doesn't look much different. I was just trying to clean up some of the oil sludge that's all over the bottom of the car, just because this thing used to leak a ton of oil and now it doesn't. So hopefully the bottom of this car doesn't get nearly as nasty. But yeah, you can see right here is our sway bar itself. I'm just going to go ahead and wipe this thing down, and it's definitely not something I can do with one hand, putting the bushing on. It's kind of a real pain, but I'm going to clean this guy off. A little rusted on this side here, but yeah, so this thing used to leak so much oil, and now I don't think it's leaking any because the oil level seems to be really good. So we had a couple of drips on the axle, on the trans and stuff, so just wanted to tidy it all up down here, and now it's all clean. I can see if we have any leaks. I do see that this steering boot is leaking right here. I put that in, that's new, so that sucks. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and slide on the bushing and get it tightened down right after I throw some more lube on the sway bar, and then we should be all set. Hopefully no more sway bar squeak, but there is another squeak, and I do think that that one is control arm related. I think it's the upper control arm, which I did replace, so that's interesting. I might be ordering some Prothane bushings shortly. So I figured I'd give you guys a little demo. After I finished lubricating these sway bar bushings, I actually, this time I did it where I have both end links detached, and so I can actually move the sway bar. So I just want to show you guys that this thing just kind of swings. You should be able to see it on this side too. It just pivots right in that bushing, and with the lubricant that I put in there, it doesn't make a noise. So yeah, I think I was shaking a lot there, but hopefully you get the picture. It doesn't make noise, so I know that this is not going to make any noise. I think I might also lubricate the end links too, just to roll them out. They do make Prothane end links. I don't know. I might just get some of those coming eventually. Eventually I'd like to do all Prothane bushings or energy suspension or whatever they are. But these hard bushings are ideal because they don't have any tension on them, like when you let the weight of the wheels down, and if you were to tighten it there and then you go to let it down, the rubber bushings are sort of tightened in the wrong spot, and then they can squeak and all this sorts of stuff. But these Prothane ones, everything just pivots and moves on the inside, rides on the lubricant. So I'd like to do that eventually, but for right now we're just going to put this thing back together, and hopefully we eliminated some of the squeak but I think that the control arm one is still going to be there. But I just wanted to show you guys that sway bar. So it is the following day, and I came out here and I busted out the sway bar end links here. So those are both tight, and I also dropped the oil just because, you know, I was nervous that I was pushing a little bit of fuel into the oil because I had really low oil pressure. And, you know, by my expectations, 10 PSI is low to me. I guess Honda's spec is 10. Yeah, so that's like the lowest they want it to go. And mine would drop there after, you know, driving for a while and the oil gets hot, it would drop down to 10 PSI at idle. And, you know, I don't really like 10 PSI. It seems kind of low to me. During pulls and stuff, it was always way high. Cold start, it's like 80. So I knew that that was okay, but I did buy some oil that I want to try. I heard a lot of good things about Shell Rotella, this T6. It's synthetic, it's 540, so when it's cold, it's 5, and when it's warm, it's 40, and that talks about the viscosity of the actual oil itself. So 5 is the same because, you know, we have cold winters here in Connecticut, and it's pretty cold right now. So I think keeping it at 5 for when the oil's cold is good, because we'll still have oil on a cold startup. But then 40 is supposed to be a little bit thicker. Instead of 5W30, we did 5W40. So when the oil's fully warm, it should be a bit thicker. And so I'm hoping that that gives me that oil pressure, at least at idle, that I'm looking for. I'd like to see higher than 10 at idle, just for peace of mind. And I don't think we're gonna have any issues running a thicker oil in here, just because all my bearing clearances are pretty loose. They're all sort of at the end of their spec, you know, like at the end of where Honda wants them, which is fine. You know, it's an old motor, but it's probably better to run a little bit of a thicker oil in there just so that we can make up for those larger clearances for the bearings. But yeah, that being said, I think this is going to be good, and it's supposed to be extreme temperature. It's actually for diesels. So diesels also have a lot of blow-by where they push fuel into the oil. So I think that this is a good oil to have for a turbo car that probably has a pretty big piston to wall clearance. So I'm probably having a decent amount of blow-by. So we are going to get fuel into the oil, and this oil should be able to withstand the fuel in it, as well as not thin out at high temperatures. So I'm pretty pumped. I'd like to see what my oil pressures are after this. I'll definitely update you guys on what the oil pressure looks like after this oil change. All right, so it is probably a couple of days later, and I've been waiting on some parts. Mainly this is my intake air temperature sensor. So I'm going to take out the one that's in there now to keep it from vacuum leaking, and I'm going to throw this one in that works. It's not all blown out and burned in the side. And I'm going to make sure that I plug it into the right cable this time. I believe the right one, I set it aside right in here. Should be this guy right here. I'm going to verify it just to make sure, because it's very important, because if I do the wrong one, it's going to blow up like it did last time. So I'm going to go ahead and verify that, and then I'm going to go ahead and plug this guy in. And I'd love to drive the car. I mean, maybe I could set it down, throw the wheels on it and everything, and take it for a spin, but I'm pretty sure it's going to fix my problem. And yeah, it's getting ready to snow tonight, so maybe I will take it for a quick spin, but, you know, undecided. But yeah, it's going to snow the next couple of days, so we're pretty much going to be snowed in here, so I figure I might get to working on some other stuff that's going to disable the car, and that way, you know, I'm not wasting time that I could be driving it. So this guy right here, I don't really want to cut these, so I think maybe I'm just going to start relocating the battery, but I'm going to have that in a separate video, so stay tuned for that. That'll definitely be the next video, is the battery relocation. And I think I have all the cable over here to do it from prior sound system installs and removals and upgrading and stuff. So I got some 2-gauge wire and some 0-gauge, a variety, and I have more stuff too. So may just have to order some ring terminals. But yeah, we'll see what we got to work with, and we should be able to get this battery in the trunk. But that's going to be, like I said, in the next video, so stay tuned. I'm going to go ahead and throw this in, pretty self-explanatory. But yeah, so thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll see you in the next one.